the country's political democracy, the issue about partisanship is heading towards. Almost like we're veering or gravitating towards a two-party state, even though in its practical nature or in its physical nature, we have a multiplicity of parties.
No, certainly when you look at the pattern of, especially in this election, and Nana Akufo-Addo had 47.74 or so. The president also had 50.7, almost 50.7. So but basically it looks like the two of them had about 98%, more than even 98%. So, and that is not good news for the smaller parties. But our system is a multi-party democracy. The fact that they did not do well now doesn't mean that the smaller parties are not going to do well in the future. Maybe in future we are going to have some realignment. Some from the MPP or from the NDC will join forces with some of the smaller parties, and they are going to have a lot of clout. But interestingly, what is very important is that the smaller parties seems like their numbers are reducing. I believe that in 2008 they did better than they are doing now. 2004 in that regard. So it sends a signal that things are not right. And this should also tell you that Ghana has become dualistic in the way we look at things. In other words, we have two pictures of things. It's either A or B. We are not ready to consider the C. So when we are talking about economic management, it's about the perspective of the MPP, which is based on promoting capitalist or conservative ideas, or the perspective of the NDC, which is about social democratic credentials. And the society is increasingly growing towards that. So I think that is not good for the smaller parties, but we can't know what is going to happen in future. So let's accept it that theoretically Ghana is a multi-party democracy, but in practice it is now clear that we are heading towards a two-party system.
And that brings us to the interpretation of the result. And once we have talked about the smaller parties, we look at essentially the votes that were gotten by the two parties, and 50.7, so to speak, by the NDC, and then the 47 in excess by the MPP. It tells you that they still command majority of the electoral population.
Yes, certainly, because when you even interpret it very well, you realize that the NDC does well in certain specific areas, and the MPP also seem to do well in certain...
In terms of the concentration.
And when you look at... And I think that this is not good for our democracy. So let's look at the voting pattern in the voter region. So basically the idea was that the NDC has really done a very good job, so maybe about 85 or 87%. And you look at Ashanti region, the verdict was that maybe the performance not so well. And I think that when we look at it from that angle, it is not good. That means people are voting not based on the real issues on the ground. Those of us in Accra, the pattern is different. We are divided about 50 to, let's say, 47.
What's accounting for that?
I think so. What that should tell you that the ethnic influences are very dominant in our elections. People don't look at the real issues on the ground. You ask people, why did you vote? And the reasons they give you are so unacceptable, especially in the 21st century. Ideally, we expect people to assess their economic situations and know which party do you think is going to help you address the problem. Well, unfortunately, that's not what we are doing here. And I think that is not good for our democracy. We want to vote for people knowing that they have a program in place, and the program should be able to address our concerns. And when you are doing that, then we as media analysts, political analysts can easily predict elections. But if we are doing the assessment, the analysis, but people are also using certain flimsy variables like their ethnicity, their religion, their cultural issues, etc., to determine who they vote for, then I think we are not heading in the right direction.
What should we be looking at if we want to move into a direction where the electorate will make a choice based on what the variables are, how they think those variables will influence their lives, and not based on ethnicity and regionalism? Where should the bus start? Where should it stop?
No, I think that political parties, as much as possible, must make the effort to present their programs to the electorate. The
reorientation and education?
And generally, our people too, we need some education for them to understand the system very well. But when you understand it very well, the various political parties or their leaders, they are on board to be able to transform our society. So I tell people that, no, if you don't vote for this person has nothing to lose. He just wanted to serve. But you are saying that at this time, we don't need you for the job. So people must be educated about the workings of government. They must understand the programs of the different political parties. And once they understand, I think that will make it better, because we want to benefit as a country from our politics.
Since 1992, Ghana has had a fantastic democratic dispensation. We've organized very positive, peaceful polls. But can we come to a point, or are we going to gravitate towards a point where it is going to be the idea of the left and the idea of the right, and not always being from the center left or the center right, so to speak, because of the ideologies the two main parties seem to have? Can't we even have a fusion at all?
No, I even think that we have fusion. But when you look at ideology matters in politics, especially in the advanced society,
because of the politics of both parties.
But in our system, NPP claims to be a property-owning democracy, largely a conservative ideology. NDC claims to believe in a social democratic ideology. And when you talk about social democratic ideology, this is an ideology that is basically says that government must be active in
centered around the state.
Government must do a lot to support the ordinary people. And the NPP is saying that individuals must be in charge of economic management. But we looked at the last NPP administration. They introduced the national health insurance, which is typically a social democratic ideal. They came up with the capitation grant. Even in the recent campaign, they were talking about free senior high school education, and that is consistent with socialist philosophy. You look at the NDC, they are also talking about several things, encouraging the private sector. So I think that the parties play the ideology when it's going to benefit them. But as far as I'm concerned, ideology may be about 5 or 10% relevant in our politics.
It's been a more realistic sort of campaigning that both parties, that is the two main parties, undertook, and at the center was the core issue of education. It might be that maybe the objectives and the perspectives were different from both parties, but it means that there's not a realization that education is critical. How critical is that idea that education will be at the forefront of development?
No, when you look at it, in all modern societies, even some of the emerging societies that have made significant progress, you look at education is the core. To transform your society, you need an educated workforce, an educated citizenry. So that's why when you go to most of the advanced societies in the world, when people start school from kindergarten, they end up at the senior high, or what they call the high school. Because the idea is that for people to be relevant in the society, they need some basic education. Even there are some emerging economies that are following suit. You go to Brazil, education is free from the basic level to the senior high. You go to Barbados, it's free from the basic level. The main idea is that you must have an educated workforce to be able to make impact in the economy. So this is something we don't have to debate at all if we want to move forward. Because the system we are having now, you don't want a situation whereby we are going to leave some people behind. There are many Ghanaians who have studied outside and they went to the school for free. I did my master's PhD in the US. I didn't pay anything, a scholarship. So when you look at it, to transform your society, you need education. And the differences have to do with the free and the quality. And I'm telling you that we can put the two together and do it. And that is going to benefit us as a country.
And if you look at that polarity, how then do we do the fusion then? Because it's a winner takes all affair. A party wins 50+1 and you do it your way.
No, look, one thing is that if you are a smart person as a politician, the president has won this election by 50.7. That should tell you that more than 49% of Ghanaians didn't like your policy, which is very significant. So as a smart president must look at what policies were presented by the other parties. 49.3% did not vote for the president. So that's a word of caution. In election, we have what we call mandate. Mandate is when you have won the election by about 55% or more. Anything less than 55% means that there are still questions to answer.
So it means that you must
consider. the policies of the other people. Because look at 49.3%. That's a lot of Ghanaians.
Okay.
Almost more than 5 million of the voters.
So how does government and the party in itself, that is the winning party, the NDC, reach out to the opposition? Looking at the current state of the animosity as it is, and even the lesser parties, so to speak.
No, I don't think the animosity is there because some are disputing the election. But
you're saying it's just makeshift or temporal?
Yeah, temporal. I know once we get going, we get governing, things are going to be right. The point is that look at some of the policies they stood for. Then just go ahead and start working with it, because you can have some of these boards of government, you can bring people from outside your party, and as president, one of the things you must also do is that certain state agencies, you don't fill them with partisan ones, people who are more concerned about partisan politics, like the FDB and some of these agents. You want to make sure that you have independent thinking people in charge of these agencies.
But Dr. Asare, here lies the case, our politicians get cranky about fielding an opposition person in a very, well, not too sensitive, but half sensitive.
No, I would not even say opposition person, people who are independent minded.
Okay.
People who don't dance to the tune of the party in power.
Either party.
Yeah. So basically look at NADMO, some of these agents.
But they may have a lineage or an ideology.
They may have. But you know, there are some people, once you mention their names, they come with partisan connotations. And we don't want to have these people in certain state agencies. Yeah. So let's have people who are independent.
Our last question on the subject of education. How critical and will education still be at the forefront of the campaign next 4 years? Because 2016 is not too far off.
Yeah, I think education will always be part of any campaign in Ghana. Because we are behind. I think we have an educational deficit, which must be addressed right from the scratch, even up to the tertiary level. There are many who pass to go to the universities, but the admission they don't get. So education is a fundamental issue, and I even think that as a country we should start exploring graduate level education, which we are not doing a lot. So education is always going to be important.
We should move even higher beyond this.
No, because people are talking about PhD, masters at several levels, but we are still, we've not even gotten the primary, the basic right. So these are things we must. It just
shows you that we have a lot more.
No, we have a lot to do.
Okay, but let me ask you this very question about how nationally our party politics has become. It's become more like NPP, NDC, and if you're not on either side, and that's it. Is it engendering ethnicity? And what is the repercussion?
I think the parties are
in the long term.
Yes, it's engendering ethnicity, which it's not good, but we must acknowledge as a people and find out how we can bring independent-minded ethnicity per se. Roland, is not bad, but the point is how we use it to be able to win political power. How we use it to undermine others is the problem. When you go to several Western societies, I normally use the US as an example. In any election, at least in the last 20 years, they know Texas will vote for the Republicans. California will go for the Democrats. They know that. But the point is, what you do, you want to make sure that you can take advantage of that and extend opportunities to all segments of the society. So it's not about only one people who will be benefiting. You make sure that when it comes to positions in government, several people are going to benefit from that.
Where lies the very talk of consensus politicking? It's gone away. Consensus politics not in the fray at all when we're talking about building or bridging the bridge.
No, I was saying this in a previous interview that we have a problem in Ghana. We don't do a lot of consensus. The system of government we are practicing, the system of democracy, what we call the majoritarian democracy we are practicing. We learned it from the British, the Americans, the Canadians. But fortunately, in this country, the major parties, they come together to work towards the Canadian goal, the British goal, the American goal. But in Ghana, we don't do that. Look at some of the major bills we have passed in recent times. The ROPAL, the STS, the selling of the Vodafone. It's like only one party's engineered this particular, but these are so important issues we need to bring the different political parties together. So I think that the onus lies on the party that has been elected, the majority party in parliament, the party in the executive branch of government, to extend an olive branch Because when you understand it very well, it's about Ghana, and all of us are Ghanaians. All of us should feel proud to contribute our quota. But once we don't do things very well, individuals who are not part of the government and they have certain wonderful ideas, we are not going to bring them on board. And it's the Ghanaians who are going to suffer. So we must move beyond our partisan thinking. The individuals in the parties who give some excruciating pains in terms of insults, certain words, parties must make sure that they put them at the periphery, so that we have individuals who speak for parties and their ideas will be bringing people together rather than dividing Ghanaians.
We have to move to the subject of what the electioneering was based on in terms of the campaigning and within the period of the voting itself, because this year's electioneering saw a lot of issue-based campaigns. The issues that were talked about, education, health, we've talked about education already, health, industry, the need to move the economy from just a normal raw material based economy to a more advanced and value added one. How can we put that into practicality?
No, I think it's generally about getting the best in Ghana, irrespective of their political persuasion. You and I know that there are some elements in the NDC, and we know when it comes to economic issues, they are very, very significant. There are elements in the NPP when it comes to industrialization, doing this and that, they can be very relevant. Elements in the different political parties, you look at someone like the PPP flag bearer, Dr. Abu Sakara, these are individuals that have done a lot. We must find a way to get them together. That's why the National Development Planning Commission is there. We must stop thinking in partisan terms. If we can get the best from the Ghanaian society, the best in academia, the best in industry, let's put them together to think about the way forward for us. I think we can do this. Or we can continue to be exporting our raw materials. And the experts will tell you that no country has based its economy on raw materials and has succeeded. You can't get to the top. We must think about adding value to what we are doing. Look at the number of people who are completing senior high, the universities, and they are not working. Opportunities are so unlimited. So they are so limited, let me say it. So the point is that as a country, let's get the best from across the different political parties, those who don't even identify with parties, and stop thinking in partisan terms. Because when you look at it critically, the job of a minister, it's not about promoting the agenda of the party. It's the government, not the party. And the government is the government of Ghana. So you are there to think for the people of Ghana. But we've seen our ministers, they think for their parties. They do things that will benefit their parties. And we'll be seeing them talking about things that will promote their parties. So the point is that we must get people who are very smart also in government. We can't just have anybody in government because the person belongs to the winning party. There are very smart people out there who can contribute effectively to our development.
And an issue that dominated the campaign was the subject of improving socio-economic development of northern Ghana so that you bridge the gap between the north and the south. And both parties all aspire to that. How rapidly should that be done?
No, I think that we must approach it with some aggressiveness, with a sense of urgency.
Than what is being done.
No, than what is being done. There must be a sense of urgency. I go to Medina and you will see case from northern Ghana, upper east, upper west, and they are selling over there, and I always feel sad. And I tell people I can't be proud as a Ghanaian when I'm seeing people who are citizens like me struggling to survive. So we must approach it with some aggressiveness. We must do it dispassionately. In other words, we shouldn't allow the politics to color it. We do it not because we want to win political power. We do it because it's in the interest of the country for us to do that. Make sure some industries, you want to set up a financial institution, you want to do this, we make sure that there is a requirement that you must do something up there. And if we can get that particular thing done, I believe Ghana will be a better place.
And in that aspect, how crucial will the small scale industry be?
No,
because in America they provide in excess of 55%.
That's the engine. That's the engine of growth. In almost all serious economy, you need smaller enterprises, the small businesses. And one of the issues is that they must have access to some funding, reduce interest rate. So government is the policy of government.
Than what is available.
And
now.
When even they are producing, there because is what we call government purchasing practices. Government must make the effort to buy what they are producing like rice. All these things are very, very relevant. And if we can get that thing done, because over the years, I think that we have not seen a sense of urgency in leadership in our country.
In the electioneering, a concern was the use of inflammatory language and then the role of the media. Now, your assessment.
No, I think that we did very well.
Period, during the voting process.
Largely, the campaign period was was characterized by the use of decent language. The religious leaders, no, not today. I thought the major parties did very well. But people were now talking about the issues, and the electorates wanted to know what you would do. Although I don't think the electorates voted based on the issue, but generally political parties were more concerned about presenting their issues across. So I think that many Ghanaians have come to realize that if you are spilling venom, if your ideas, you are trying to insinuate certain things, they are not going to like you. So I think the parties have learned that, and I think that moving forward, the parties should make sure that they get people who appear to be very respectful in their delivery, in their rhetorics, and Ghanaians are going to go for that.
The media.
No, I found the media has done a very good job, and I think the coverage of this election especially has been excellent across the different media entities we have. And in terms of the coverage of the story, you realize that most of the campaigns were covered, the media will edit. So even if they express some indecent languages, etc., the media did not produce some of these things. So I think generally we can applaud the media for what they have done. And it also shows that our democracy, although there are problems, we are advancing in this regard.
Because yesterday, the New Patriotic Party raised the subject of the media, especially in collusion with the state apparatus and the winning party.
No, I think now, the election has been very close. I still think that what they are saying, they may have some legitimate reasons to support that. And when you are the side that is down there, there is a tendency for you to think that people are doing several things. And I think that until these things are investigated, we can't know who is right. And I even think that as president of the country, the president can make a statement that, if people are alleging that this and that have happened, why not allow the state agencies that are responsible to do the proper investigation? But one of the things which is important is that you don't want to be elected as president and some people have doubts about how you won the election. You want even the opposition guy, their supporters, to accept that you won it in a fair, transparent and free manner.
Well, Dr. Bossman Asare, a political science lecturer with the University of Ghana, is still with us, and we're doing our last wrap-up comment and transmission on Election House 2020.